Namaste. Welcome to another edition of Navavimash Podcast. So today our guest has already arrived. Let me just bring him on camera. So welcome everyone to Navavimash Podcast. So today we have a very provocative and intriguing topic that we have been discussing internally for a long time regarding what lacks Hindu society. What are the lacunas which are there in Hindu society, which is reflected in the various aspects of Hindu polity, Hindu culture, and also Hindu institutions. So these are a lot of academic things which we'll talk about, but we also talk about other things as well as we move along. But to start with, we're going to learn what is social capital, and if you feel social capital is a very heavy term, use community capital. So social capital and community capital they are almost synonymous in nature. So first, our guest today, Academic Man, will be giving us a description and an intro to social capital, and then we will move along and discuss certain aspects of social capital reflection which we see in the BJP, Sangh, or any other so-called Hindu organizations in general. And just one thing before I hand it over to Academic Man. Uh, Members, channel members who can join this podcast live and ask questions to me and to Academic Man live on the podcast itself. The link is there in the members only post. So please go ahead and check that link. And last 30 minutes of the podcast, we will be dedicated to the members who will be able to ask questions live. So over to you, Academic Man.
Thank you. I'd like to start by first defining what social capital essentially means. So, social capital was a term by sociologist Robert Putnam, who actually uh, spoke about how social networks were declining in the US. Now, with regards to Hindus right now, we can see that this is again a reflection of what has happened after the loss of temple communities and different kind of other social communities that we had, like during various pujas and festivals and all that things. There is a reason that they say Baro Mashe Tero Parban, which means there are many festivals and pujas all over the year that are being organized by the Hindus. And there's a reason that these used to happen, and that is to cultivate social capital, that is to cultivate our internal structure and networks within ourselves. The problem happens when ultimately there is no coercion. That's I feel one big problem of Hinduism. That is the beauty of Hinduism, which is why we have so many diverse modes of faith in the Hindu community. Even an atheist can be a Hindu. Even somebody who does not follow any rituals, does not pray, can be a Hindu, simply by virtue of their birth and their cultural aspects. But because there is no coercion or force, there is no per se regimentation like Abrahamics. It's a big issue that we are unable to cultivate social networks among ourselves, and therefore we depend on the BJP, the Sangh, and other kind of more political or cultural organizations to do it. But it is essentially a form of outsourcing that we're doing. We're not doing it, we're not participating on our own. Like, actually, it's not, I mean, the way that modernity is structured, in any country that is highly modern, it is very difficult to have an associational life. The closest we have right now is, for example, is the caste organizations in different parts of the country. But as we know, those are actually designed to fragment us. Those are not designed to unify us. They are designed to unify certain groups of people, but it is also designed to create problems among other groups of people. So the caste community, the caste groups, associations that we have in different parts of the country, they basically serve a very negative political end, if we think about it. sometimes positive, but mostly negative political end. So, in essence, what we have is we have a, a kind of non-religious form of association in different parts of the country that is based on your occupation, your maybe, so if you live in a closed door society, a gated community, then maybe you sometimes meet your neighbors. If you have a old neighborhood, maybe you have that kind of a thing. But overall, the Hindu community does not care who lives in the apartment beside them, or the flats above them or below them. And this is creating a big problem in the sense that there is no way to fall, there are no people to fall back on when shit hits the fan, basically. Yes, Abhay, Bordew was one of the pioneers, but Robert Putnam is like the more famous guy. Bordew talks about primarily social, symbolic, and cultural capital. We can get to that on another day. But for now, basically, we'll be taking Putnam's basic. It doesn't matter actually. Both speak about social networks essentially. Although Putnam sees it as a more positive thing, Bourdieu does not have value judgment per se in that. So you either have social capital or you don't. That's the way Bourdieu sees it. It's more of a power thing with Bourdieu. With regards to what we see with Robert Putnam is that, and other theorists who talk about the declining kind of social networks in different societies, modern societies, is that you will see that one classical sociologist comes to mind. Is that there's a theorist, Emil Durkheim. Emil Durkheim talks about how suicides increase in speedily modernizing communities as well as very regressive communities. So he talks about social cohesion, which means how close people in a society are. So he says that if people in a close society are very far from each other, like there is no connection between you, me, others, anyone, there's no support system, there are no friends, family, whatever, or you meet very occasionally, like you meet your family once a year or something, okay, then there are sometimes there are cases of number of suicides increase. And he also shows that if there is too much cohesion, like for example, in Abrahamic, some certain Abrahamic societies where you can see, suicide bombing, where the communities are so close that everyone polices your every move. Okay, there is extreme coercion, and therefore people commit suicide as well. So there is no, so more closeness does not necessarily mean a better thing for the individual. So that's Durkheim's view. We can talk about that later one day. But essentially what he says is that there is a kind of sweet spot in the community building which we can hit that is basically good for the individual and the community, both. So we have to understand that these have been eroded in the maybe last 150 years or so. And of course, we can blame modernity for it, but our country was, once a developed country. It's not like our country got developed, 2 years ago or 10, 20 years ago. Our country was known for its technological progress and also wealth. India was one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So it's not necessary that, always. Yes, this is a very good point. Thank you. Oh my gosh. So in that sense, if we look at our country maybe 2000 years ago, this may not necessarily have been the case, that there is a lack of social capital, but there is wealth. That wasn't the case. There was wealth and there was cultivation of social capital through temple communities and stuff like that. I think the incentives for being in a community have gone down. I think there have been vilification of Hindu rituals. There has been vilification of what we are, what our identity is, and so once you are shamed for being a Hindu, you will stop going to a temple. You will stop identifying as a Hindu. Once you are scared into submission, once you are told that you can't pray on the streets, you can't pray, in public, then you start praying silently at home. Okay, you may do it, but it's at home. So that is how we see from temple communities. Maybe we became a more a community, especially as we see it in Calcutta, Bengal, other parts of sometimes North India and all, where there are not so many temples as is the case in South. So a lot of people pray at home because that became our norm out of fear. So that added to the fact that at least, but even then there was some feeling of community perhaps 50, 60 years ago. But what has happened is the advent of nuclear family, feminism, so ideas that have actually, created more and more rifts in the families, where people do not want to stay in joint families anymore. They don't pool in resources anymore. That kind of thing has come, but and that has also replaced the family in many ways. People now work hard so that a couple can have, kind of, let's say they have a isolation. They are in a flat, and no parents, no relatives whatsoever. And then they fall in trouble one day, and then they have no place to go. So these are there. So so we are aware. I think the viewers, the listeners, everyone, you, me, everyone knows that this is the case. I won't go much into why this is. We all kind of understand why this is the case. We can think of one thing though, that why this is a problem and how we can counter it. I believe that we can't force compliance. That's the problem with Hindus, that we can't do what they do in certain countries, right? Like, we can't force women to do things. We can't say that, okay, feminism band hai abhi, cover yourself top to bottom and stay in the home. So we can't do that, and that was never really Hindu culture to begin with. So what can we do? Perhaps if I have to think out loud, it is better to try to incentivize being a Hindu. That is where we must start, I believe. That one, when Swami Vivekananda says "Garv se kaho hum Hindu hai," that kind of thing needs to be then cultivated more, so that people actually participate more and more in the realm of rituals. And there are actually, festivals and more gathering of people who are not afraid to celebrate their collective culture. If we try to ensure consequences for actions, the problem that happens is that it is, the kira of liberalism won't allow you to go very far in that aspect, because the liberalism ka kira already ghus gaya hai. So I think liberalism, my contention is that Hindus were always the most liberal community in the world anyway. That wasn't the problem. The problem that has come now is that we are dealing with forces that do not glorify our older way of life. Okay. Now what I mean by that is that our state had mandated hum do hamare do. Okay. Our state had mandated that, you must be secular. Our state had mandated that, okay, men, there must be laws against men exclusively. So our state has ensured further that we stop being Hindu as a community. You can be Hindu, but in your home, hidden away somewhere, you can be a Hindu perhaps, if you are lucky. But in the public, you cannot be Hindu. Not just that, you cannot have a community. You cannot expect others to comply to, our way of life, that kind of thing. Now, like I said, like Abhay is saying, that consequences for actions. This is very difficult because, like I said, liberalism ka kira hai, and we have a great judiciary, a great state. So it's very difficult to expect accountability on the part of women and other, factions, sections in society by doing all this. Eventually, we must embrace the fact that culture, media, these must be more geared. And when I say culture and media, I mean more quality. Okay, like for example, I see a lot of Americans now promoting farm life, trad wife culture, farm life, and that kind of thing. So you create elites, the elites will influence the masses. Our elites became communists in the last 60, 70 years. So we also decided to become communists, majority of us. We thought, okay, because the elites are communists, people become communists. Okay, that is how they destroy the community. Right. Once your elites become Hindu and unabashedly Hindu, then the lower sections will also start, mimicking them. You have movies like Mrs., right? But what movies do we have against it? Yes, this I've been hearing about this one. Can you believe that I did not see one poster in Calcutta? So I did not know that this released before today. So obviously, I mean, you can believe that this won't release in Calcutta. But eventually, we must understand that you know without capturing the media, without positive reinforcement, you can't go very far. If you try to now negatively fight, it will work to some extent, but it won't give you dividends that you think it will. What it will create is more rifts in men and women. Okay, we don't want that necessarily. Not with already declining TFR and fertility rates and birth rates. So if we, I think that the solution out of here is more and more quality stuff coming in the forefront. Remember one thing. This is where it gets interesting. I actually happened to catch a few scenes of the movie from where Mrs. was taken. The Hindi movie Mrs. was made. It is a Keralian movie. So as we know that in Kerala, the movie industry is supported by the state and state-sponsored regimes, and the information warfare is done by the state and its agents with help from foreign aid and stuff. Now the problem with this kind of thing is that if we look at what we are producing, we have very few movies on our side. Vivek Agnihotri cannot make 50 movies, right? He has to he makes one movie every 4 5 years, which is a very big important movie. But these have to be now inculcated in the very lifestyle lifestyle of people. The lifestyle won't be influenced by Bengal Files and Kerala Story and all that. Those are more cautionary tales. You need more positive content in the form of serial. Like I see a lot of people around me watching women, particularly older women, watching crappy feminist serials in Bengali. Okay, so what is the solution to that? There is no wholesome series that show that shows positivities of motherhood and positivities of family life to anyone. Ekta Kapoor and all these people, they are actually making 100 many 20 30 40 serials which totally vilify the joint family, and they destroy uh, the identity of the Hindu community by showing the Hindu community as essentially patriarchal and oppressive. So we have to ensure that the kind of media that women consume, and I think that this was a very deliberate thing. Like if you think about it, serials like Kyuki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi and all these serials that came around, these essentially created the market for women-based series, that instead of showing Jhansi Ki Rani or Rani Ahalya Bai and all these people, they showed very negative stereotypes of men and their families, and that has been still continuing. Like there are still new serials that essentially show that target housewives. Now you may think they're targeting housewives. These housewives may not even go out for a divorce, but sometimes they are influencing their children, their daughters, to get out of their marriages. This is very common actually. If you look at most cases of men's rights abuses, you will see that majorly it is the parents of the girl who are telling her that, okay, you have to get out of this marriage, you have to ask for a flat, you have to go out of the joint family, that kind of thing. So who are these people? These women are products of the feminist movement of the 60s and 70s. and slowly the movies that used to come around, okay, and then they are the product of all this, the crap that you see in the media and academia and all these people. So what happens is that slowly and surely their minds have been poisoned, and that is one aspect. Of course, we will get to the Sangh BJP aspect of it, and where I see the problem, and where I see that it is not entirely their fault, and where I see the problems.
Yes, so I think you have given a good base for the discussion to carry forward and move ahead. So I think audience would have an understanding of what is social capital and how it is reflected in society. So
Yeah,
now we will come back to the contemporary aspect of our discussion. That is, we have mentioned in our title that problems, okay, problems or the issues of social capital. So we have mentioned social capital lost. So if you can just give the audience a little bit of understanding, okay, or description, how Hindus lost their social capital, and then we'll move ahead and talk about the reflection of social capital in our today's society.
yeah. So again, primarily as I see it, social capital was lost in the post 60s feminist movements. If you look at it, the in the US, for example, there was the anti-Vietnam movement, and not the anti-Vietnam, anti-war movement and stuff. Uh, this was a very conscious effort by the USSR. If you think that this was a natural occurrence, then it's wrong. So they took over the universities and stuff, and as usual with the, if you read Wallerstein's theories, you will see that whatever happens in the core of the world, that is the US right now, which is the main powerhouse, that percolates to the peripheries. So in the late 80s, you will see a spate of books on Brahmanical patriarchy by feminists like Uma Chakravarti and Suvira Jaiswal and others. These people were professors in JNU. So I don't have to tell you all what JNU does. So they essentially created this narrative of Brahmanical patriarchy, and they showed that, okay, because Hinduism essentially, is patriarchal, so it must be challenged. And I was reading their books actually, and what I found in particularly Uma Chakravarti's interviews and books was, she started saying that actually, you see, the patriarchy hasn't gone away. So then I was like, okay, then what is she trying to say? Then she's saying that देखो अभी serial में you see a large family, and that is the mainstay of the patriarchy in Indian society. So Uma Chakravarti says that, and as you see that Ekta Kapoor and all come in after that. Like what they do is they take the family, so a large family, and they show how oppressive the family is for the woman. And obviously the young women relate to it, because yes, I mean, they have to go to a different house, so they may not feel the best feelings at the time, and then they extrapolate from that and put it into their own lives. So what I see is that there's a creation of the feminist movement, the leftist movements in the 60s, and that slowly you know and surely is passed on through the Nehruvian and Indira Gandhi state onto the academics, and then mass media in India. And therefore, you have a spate of movies where the patriarchal nature of Hindus, the bad things, there are people like Govind Nilani, there are people like Shyam Benegal, there are people like Gautam Ghosh. All these art film directors, they make a lot of movies. Now, you might say, okay, who watches these movies? But actually, they had a very upper middle class taker in their audience, and ideas cultivated down from them. There was the secular ethos that was being promoted. So there were serials where they showed that riots mein dono ka hi haath hai. Hindus are also bad. So while the peaceful community does not feel bad for the riots, you are made to feel bad for the riots. Okay. And instead of, we have very few instances of mass media being used for good, like Ramayana and Mahabharata. Okay. Although that is the natural ethos. When Ramayana and Mahabharata were on, people used to gather in their relative and friends' house and watch them. That was the last, I think, instance of social capital being cultivated by, the state and the media. Essentially, not the state essentially, but the media. A good form of social capital. कि रामायण देखना है महाभारत देखना है so let's gather in a relative's house and sit and have breakfast or lunch and watch Ramayan. So that kind of thing was done for a reason. But then so you see that there are one Ramayan, one Mahabharata, and maybe a few others. But there are hundreds of K series. There are hundreds of anti-Hindu series that are going on the backdrop. So that's how what they did is they created that idea. Whatever positives are coming from mass media, they are subverting that and making it into a medium for creating, family issues and destroying the basic structure of the Hindu family. On top of that, you have laws like 498 and this and that and domestic violence cases, and you have a bunch of other laws and things coming around from UPA government. So these are all targeted towards Hindu community. But the problem that we can see is that just like we got influenced, just like we were unable to keep mass media away from us, or we were unable to influence the good part of mass media in our lives, right? The same way, we also, the Sangh and BJP were unable to capture these. Of course, the Sangh and BJP were not always in a position of power, so we can't expect them to always do everything in that period. But think about it this way. So in the 1950s, when right after Gandhi's whatever it was, Gandhi's assassination, whoever did it, now the point is that it was used as an excuse to destroy the Hindutva movement in India, right? Now, if we think about it, right after that, the Sangh and BJP were very weak. They were BJP to tha hi nahi, Jan Sangh baad mein aaya. And anyway, the Sangh was kind of outlawed, and later on many other issues happened. Savarkar was very old. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was murdered. So all that stuff happened in the 50s and all. At that time, we had education ministers like Abul Kalam Azad, instead of an R.C. Majumdar and others who could have been the education minister, who are nationalist historians and proper academics with PhDs and all. We have a Maulana as a education minister. Now, what did the Hindu community do then? My question is that we actually sat in our homes and studied the Mughal Empire. We did not protest even once. We had the partition in 46 and 47. We had refugee problems. We had riots in the 40s. But by the 50s, when Maulana Azad is being appointed as the education minister, and then 5 subsequent times peaceful education minister is there, nobody protests. The Sangh and BJP tha hi nahi, Jan Sangh was very weak, and Dindayal Upadhyay also died very early, or Dindayal Upadhyay was also bumped off kind of. So what is there? The Sangh is outlawed. The Sangh has no power per se. Sangh chup chup ke karte the. So the Hindu community essentially did not bond even at a moment of crisis for us at that point. I don't know why this is. Perhaps it is the fatal flaw of not having kind of Abrahamic kind of doctrine of getting people together by force. I don't know if that would even work on Hindus. But these are many of the things that I have questioned in my mind for many years. That why didn't Hindus protest right after partition? Why did my grandfather and your grandfather not protest when we have a Maulana as an education minister? And then the horrible worst quality Indian history textbooks and stuff, which completely destroyed the image of Hindus in the mind of Hindus. तब तो media नहीं था ना, social media नहीं था. So all they had was the government textbooks and whatever the government could feed them. And they learned only that. And before social media, what we're talking about wasn't even possible to talk about. So that's the other problem, that we depended too much on the state for dissemination of information. We we gave up our rights to temples, we gave up our rights to education, to minority institutions and all that. What ultimately it did was, there was nobody to tell us, okay, this may be wrong. Nobody to guide us in the way. And we allowed the state to do whatever it wanted. The state decided hum do hamare do or kam karo, and we went along with it. Edike, the peaceful community has its different rights and 4 marriages, 20 babies thing. So the state was treating us like 8th class citizens from the 1950s. Unfortunately, because the Sangh or any other organization that could have stood up was not ready for the challenge, and neither were we as a community. We were unable to kind of prevent the destruction of the home. We were unable to stop the evil from entering, and once the evil entered, then all the more eventually it increased. Or abhi dekho, I think Nina was asking a very good question, that is liberalism to blame. Dekho, the funny thing is, now the ethos is actually more liberal because of social media. There is an exchange of views, and now people are actually asking for more conservatism. People are asking for social capital and more unity among Hindus. But in the time when the when the state was in control of everything, and the state was controlled by foreign elements, then you don't have you don't have any way to be liberal also. And the state forced you to be kind of liberal, matlab its version of liberal, which is that forget the family, forget your past, forget your heritage, and become kind of secular citizens who have no identity except the state. So that was forced by the state. That wasn't liberal at all. In fact, that was radical in its inception. It was radical in the sense that it was actually forcing a kind of artificial version of our identity onto us. That is not our identity, but it was forced by the state. So to say that liberalism was the problem, I don't think so. Liberalism, in fact, abhi jab it is a more liberal ethos where you and I can talk about it online. You and I can debate about it online, right? When we can get all the information that we want. We can listen to podcasts in all over the country and all over the world. We can talk about these issues with more freedom. Although we hide our faces and stuff, but still we are doing whatever we can. But when we can get freedom, then actually we can at least try to be ourselves. But before we had freedom, when the state controlled every aspect of our lives, we did not have any freedom. Think about it. Like, you were taught how to think. You were taught what is good. You were taught what is bad. Not by your parents, but by the state. So I'll give you an example. In the USSR, there was a story of a child who actually, kind of ratted out his dad. Okay. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. There was this child who kind of went against his own father in the Soviet Union. Okay, and he apparently, I'll give you the name. Hold on. Yeah. So this child, the story goes that this child, Pavlik Morozov. Okay, Pavlik Morozov. So this was a famous story in the Soviet Union. What did the story of Pavlik Morozov teach us? So Pavlik Morozov का story ये है कि Pavlik Morozov was seeing that his father is a farmer. Okay. Now his father is storing grains for his family. तो वो क्या करता है? He protests against his father storing grains because that is not allowed in the Soviet Union. In the Soviet Union, you must tell the commissar, the state, that देखो मेरे घर में I have so many grains. I have this 10 kilo of grains or whatever. Now, the state will decide whether you will get to have those grains or not. So Pavlik Morozov complains about his father to the state, and as a result, he was killed by his family. Matlab, his family did honor killing type thing and killed him and buried his body. Pavlik Morozov के नाम पे सोवियत में गाना वाना plays, all that stuff happened. Okay. Now, what does this show? That if you depend on your family and community, the Soviet Union में वो allowed नहीं है. Okay. You have to be a traitor to your own family, and then you will be glorified. So the Soviet Union actually glorified this child. The worst part is, what people came to know later was this was a complete fake story. This wasn't even a real story. Okay. So imagine कि जैसे same as Brahmanical patriarchy, एक story बना, and then people started, because देखो, every community has patriarchy. You can't just blame Brahmins. तो फिर इस्लामिक पेट्रियार्की होना चाहिए, क्रिश्चियन पेट्रियार्की होना चाहिए, जापानीज पेट्रियार्की होना चाहिए, ब्रिटिश पेट्रियार्की होना चाहिए. तो उन सब के बारे में ना लिख के, these people focused completely on Brahmins and the Hindu community, and they said कि Hindu family structure is most patriarchal. So essentially they did a Pavlik Morozov there. They created the elites. They created the kind of elites who would say that Hinduism is bad, and Hinduism matlab kya, community is bad, and therefore the state is good. If the state says you must be secular, you must be secular. If the state says you have to hate your own gods and you have to critique your own gods and your culture all the time, you don't have to go to a temple. You have to go to a state mandated school, which is essentially a prison. Kind of like Hirok Raja Deshe, they showed that it's a Mogos Dholai machine where they implant foreign thoughts in your brain. So the Pavlik Morozov kind of thing was being done to us as well. We just didn't know it. There was no Pavlik Morozov per se, but the Sati template that was there, that was actually created that way. There's a historian by the name Lata Mani, and there are other historians. There's Arzula. I think CSK read her paper once. I can tell you about it. तो Sati जो था, if you actually go into the details, Sati was not a problem for Europeans earlier. Many of the European जो थे, they actually Andrea Major, she was the main one of the main writers on Sati in the recent times. So she says that Europeans, so she took out the European discourse on Sati. So they said that Sati thoda bahut yawa hota hai. It's actually, they saw it in a positive light, Europeans, because they said that if the woman is dying with the husband, that is not that bad. Okay. Then what happened is, from the 19th century, they saw that okay, Hindus ko to we have to give them some bamboo. So they decided okay, Sati ko vilify karte hain. And then they decided कि हमारा जो best friend है Raja Rammohun Roy, he will discard Sati, okay, as if he did it without state support. Anyway, so ये जो Sati का issue है, this was again raised in the 1980s, when in 1985 there was Roop Kawar, who was a girl in Rajasthan who committed Sati for her husband. Now, a lot of women actually, on their own committed Sati or Johar. Now the problem is they always tried to use these instances to destroy the religion. But actually what Lata Mani and all are saying, and even others are saying, is Andrea Major and others, is that there is actually a caste angle to Sati, which is not so bad. So when I talk about caste, I don't necessarily mean it as a bad thing. It means that Hindu to Dalit bhi Hindu the, the so-called Dalits, the lower caste, upper caste, everyone is Hindu, right? So if Hindus practice Sati, that means every section practice Sati. But that's not the case. Only certain upper caste families in certain parts of the country practice Sati. Okay. Why did they do it? Now, even Romila Thapar says that it's actually for property, not necessarily because of Hindu. So Hindu बाद में आया, Actually, sometimes they also did it for property. Huh. So when the property laws were amended and the laws were made better, sometimes it became, the British messed with our laws and they created laws that were actually more patriarchal. And then to get the property, they actually kind of uh, uh, had those issues where they created the institution of sati kind of, and then the sati was practiced, and then they said, okay, because sati abhi is very bad, so it must be Hindus that do sati. But that's not true. Most Hindus did not do sati. Okay. If they did, then like half the women in the country would have been dead. Okay. So anyway, my point being that uh, just like the Morozov case, the Pavlik Morozov case, where a guy, where a complete fabrication is created out of nowhere, out of thin air, by the state to shame people, to say that okay, you cannot, you have to rat out your own family, you have to go against your own family to favor the state. ये जो नैरेटिव है, इसको बना के एकदम बढ़ा के वी हैव बीन गिवन विदाउट द एक्चुअल स्टोरी ऑफ पैवलिंग। हमारा स्टोरीज अलग थे, सती था, दिस दैट व्हाटएवर, राम अपेरेंटली वाज द वर्स्ट मैन इन द वर्ल्ड बिकॉज ही टोल्ड हिज वाइफ व्हाटएवर। वो सच भी है या नहीं, nobody told us that. We were just told the version that the left feels that is necessary for us to learn. So, in fact, just the other day, a woman was telling me that Ram was a very bad man, and I was like, "What did he do?" And she was like, "He asked for his wife's Agni Pariksha." I was like, "How do you know he asked for his wife's Agni Pariksha? Like, what is the source?" And she's like, "Everybody knows." I'm like, "No, everybody does. I don't know. Tell me the source. Tell me the actual, academic source or whatever you have, or what book you read, or which version of the Ramayana you read. Tell me that." And she couldn't answer, because obviously these have been, so just like the Pavlik Morozov case, the state has actually gaslighted us. Abhi gaslighting bahut chal raha hai, gaslighting the term. The state has gaslighted us for the last 80 years or 70 years. उसका रिजल्ट आज है कि हिंदूज हैव नो सोशल कैपिटल। ये जो है, ये द डेटा यू आर गिविंग, मॉडर्न सोसाइटी, अभी मॉडर्निटी का यही प्रॉब्लम। द आई थिंक द गुड थिंग इज, अभी तो इंफॉर्मेशन एक्सचेंज है, वी कैन एक्चुअली चैलेंज अ लॉट ऑफ द क्रैप दैट द स्टेट टॉट अस। ये जो डॉक्यूमेंटेड 1950 to 2000 दैट यू आर शोइंग, इट इज एक्चुअली द प्रॉब्लम that was created by the state, so that we are completely, totally dependent on the state for every aspect of our lives. Except the peacefuls. Peacefuls can have their own education system, their own family, niyam. They can have unlimited birth, they can have unlimited marriage, unlimited divorce, this, that, whatever, right? Except peacefuls and a few other communities, everyone else has to adhere to the state and be the the dogs, the pet dog of the state, essentially. And so we have forgotten our family in the favor of the state. So हमारे साथ Pavlik Morozov वाला story हो गया, कांड हो गया. I think later on you can perhaps put a community post on Pavlik Morozov. You will find the this thing on Google easily. So moving on to the Sangh and the BJP. Any kind of, देखो, I keep saying that Mamata Banerjee is the best leader for Bengal because the representation of Bengalis is in West Bengal right now is best done by Mamata. At one time, the representative of Bengalis were Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Bengali Hindus, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Dr. Bidhan Chandra Rai, these people, because then the Bengalis were like that. Now the Bengalis are like Mamata Banerjee, so Mamata Banerjee is the same. So in that sense, any community's leadership often reflects the community's problems and good stuff. So if the Sangh and BJP right now have been unable to defeat this monster that we have spoken about for the last maybe half an hour, it is also because we as a community have also failed in many ways. We haven't questioned the state. We have not questioned these kind of stories and issues and the vilification of our idols such as Lord Ram and all these aspects of our lives. We were told that Brahmins created patriarchy. We were not told that who else is patriarchal, who else. I won't go into that. Don't want the channel to get banned. Anyway, so we were told a lot of stories and we never questioned them. And the problem, and that also got reflected in the fact that the Sangh and BJP, despite having some support in society, we were unable to see their impact in the rest of society also. In that sense, so let's move on a bit. Your
Hello,
mic is off.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So now
You are
we'll move
silenced by
to
the state. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll move to our most important point that people are waiting for to discuss, the juicy topic one. So we are saying that the Sangh and the BJP are the reflection of the lack of social capital or
Yes.
lost social capital of Hindu society for almost 1,000 years. So if you can
Yes.
explain to the audience, what do we mean by that BJP is the reflection of the lost social capital of Hindus?
In the sense that uh, when I see the BJP right now, the BJP has done a lot of good things. Development, we have a much better ethos for, let's say, movies like Bengal Files, so there and Kerala Story, and the atrocities on Hindus in Bangladesh and all over the country. These are being discussed actually because BJP Sangh are in a position of power right now. But uh, having said all that, I absolutely admire some of the work that they've done, especially among tribals and other parts. There are also lack in the belief system as I see the BJP. Like, obviously, I'm not going to say that the top leadership has a belief issue. The top leadership may be believers in the community vision, the vision for this country, where which goes back to our roots, Indic roots. But what we have a problem with, perhaps, what we see that the BJP has a problem with, is that the BJP is unable to, when it grows, when it inculcates new people. I believe that it is unable to kind of influence them properly in the ideological message. What I'm trying to say is the BJP has grown, but it has not spread, if you know what I mean. Like, it is becoming like a balloon without giving much of its ideological tenets to its people. So there are so if you think about it, uh, not only are most new people in the BJP there for just power and some kind of position in the party or the state machinery, they are actually kind of missing the zeal for reform that we are expecting. Or that is not there. I wouldn't say that is exclusively the BJP's problem. ये Hindu society में problem है generally. मतलब I think your channel is one of the few that points out कि सारा दिन IPL देखो, सारा दिन TikTok करो, सारा दिन ये सब करो, तो when look at a celebrity's lifestyle, celebrity क्या कर रहा है, इसके पीछे सब भाग रहे हैं. But people don't have, like, I actually was surprised, like, particularly I was surprised by people in Maharashtra. Okay, now there's a reason, and so I met some people from Maharashtra, and when I started talking to them about various issues in society and even political issues, their faces were like, "What is this? Like, I've never heard of this." Okay, so that was I was taken aback. So I was like, "So what do people in Maharashtra do? They just go to their office." Or whatever, they do their business and then come back home and watch movies or cricket. So they have no understanding of what's going on. I actually told them that I believe that Vivek Agnihotri has done a lot for the narrative power, and they were like, "Oh, Vivek Agnihotri, uska koi film nikla tha na." I'm like, "What the hell?" इससे देख के पूरा world में there were controversies all over the world, right? And people, some people in Maharashtra have no idea. I was like, what the hell, like, seriously. And then I realized that that's why in Mumbai, there, when people vote in Mumbai, there is just 40% voter turnout. There is no sense of urgency in the people. There is no sense of the fact that we are in the middle of a narrative war, culture war, we are in a civilizational war. Nobody knows that. Like, people think ki SL world jaunga main, ghar nahi aunga main, that is the life. Okay, they don't understand that their way of life is completely under threat by not just external elements but many internal elements as well. They have no idea until it hits them in the face, and then it's too late. So in a way, that insulation that has been created in their lives, entertainment and all that, that space needs to be taken up. Matlab, we can keep abusing people who make movies like Mrs. and all that. We can tell them that you are wrong. But usse kaam nahi hoga. We must, but like if we have to capture that huge section of Hindus who are just watching celebrity gossip all day, then we have to create a different form of, like, we have to create a better worldview among these people. Yes, स्वयंबोध and शत्रुबोध. अभी स्वयंबोध ही नहीं है तो शत्रुबोध तो है ही नहीं. हाँ. And this is the problem. Like, people delegate their, मतलब for them BJP is a political party, तो ठीक है, वो politics का part है. Politics is different from our lives. I can just check out reels and this and that and some crap in the in Twitter and all that, and I'll be happy. उसको ये नहीं मालूम है, but that if you don't understand what's going on around you, one fine morning you will wake up and you won't have your family or friends or anything, whatever is there. Okay. And that is the main problem. But I don't entirely blame them. Like, they have not been taught the Shatrubodh either. Like, they have been taught to forget Swayambodh, and then they obviously forgot the Shatrubodh as well. So, you have to capture media. Otherwise, I see no other way out. I honestly see no way out, and the media needs to be captured by quality filmmakers, quality content creators who must be funded, like Abhi and New and all. They are creating some things, right? People like Abhi and New. So we need hundreds of Abhi and New in every state. We need to have positive content related to Hindu lifestyle, related to India. Or we have to fund them even more. Unko funding denge to, we'll be able to see. I see some content from Bangalore. Very interestingly, I see no connect with what they say and the life we live. Okay, like the tech sector, for example, the Bangalore tech, Bangalore, Hyderabad mein jo tech cities वगैरह hai, the people who live there, they live in a different country. Like, I'm too sorry to quote Veerdas here. I absolutely hate that guy. But the problem is that he was right. We live in two Indias. One India, पंचायत में 200 लोग मर रहे हैं, and the other India में TikTok चल रहा है, मिसेस चल रहा है, OTT चल रहा है, a completely different lifestyle, pseudo-American kind of lifestyle is going on. Now, we are talking in English. I'm using American technology to talk to you. I don't vilify America for this. I don't see the problem in greater developments in technology. I have always felt that actually because of technology now we can raise some issues. Okay, so vilifying technology is not the solution, but capturing more of the elite space, that is the main thing. And I think Hindus, ये भी reflection है Hindus का, मतलब in the last 60 years, Hindus have not thought of doing business much. मतलब how many other, we say Ambani Adani, but how many Ambanis or Adanis have even come out of India, right? Ambani Adani जैसे बहुत लोग आ गए हैं US में, यहाँ वहाँ चाइना वाइना सब जगह है, how many we abuse Ambani Adani, and then we have no we have no desire to better ourselves. We think that ye sarkari naukri mil gaya, my life is set. Okay. Or some, I have this one car and one flat and whatever, and my life is set. So there is no urgency in any sense to better yourself. Or BJP also knows that. Somewhere BJP, like I said, BJP is a reflection of us, right? Of the Hindu society that it represents. So बीजेपी में हुआ है कि अच्छा टॉयलेट बना दिया, रास्ता बना दिया, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी दे दिया. I think we'll get the votes this time. So let's forget the other issues. So I won't blame BJP entirely for that. BJP, Sangh, etc. And I believe that that's where we must improve. And perhaps it is our tragedy that we kind of outsourced everything to the state, and now there is if we need to hurry back, it's not easy. So the state has to do a few things. Like I said, the state has to incentivize being Hindu. ये करना पड़ेगा स्टेट को. Otherwise I don't see an organic movement out of nowhere. There are some people like Sadhguru, Sri Ravi Shankar, other gurus who have actually somewhat held the communities together, Hindu community together. But again, look at what these gurus have to go through. They are constantly hounded by the media. Their loyalty is questioned. Their products are questioned. Okay, they have no support within the ruling establishment. Okay, not much support at any rate. They are just used before elections sometimes. So that is the other problem, that we have to, create incentives for being Hindu. We have to ask the state ki bhai bahut ho gaya, you have abused us for 70 years. Now you have to give us some things. Lollipop dena padega. And what is that lollipop? Give us our cultural freedom. If you can't free our temples, give us the freedom and the incentives to open more. एक संस्कृत यूनिवर्सिटी खोलने से नहीं होगा. Open more, allow institutions like Ramakrishna Mission and Art of Living and Sadhguru and all these Isha Foundation and others to open schools. Allow them, give them tax benefits कि हाँ तुम जो मिशनरीज को मिला था एक टाइम पे अभी भी मिल रहा है. You get those benefits. You get tax benefits if you open schools which are dharmic, which teach you values. ये अभी स्टेट को करना पड़ेगा, वरना I don't see any way out of this in the next 20-30 years otherwise.
Okay, so let me ask a few questions, okay, which might give a better perspective. So we will now I'll ask one question and then we'll move to the temple part of it. So when you are mentioning that Sangh and RSS, Sangh or BJP are reflecting the lost social capital and bit of apathy because
Yes.
the state has disincentivized Hinduness in them, so they have
Yes.
veered towards being modern, secular, and all those things. But I have one thing, an observation. Is that correct?
Yeah.
We had a like a bloody independence struggle, okay, for almost 200
Yes.
years, okay.
Yes.
And when we became independent in 1947,
Yeah.
like there was a kind of a correct, like okay, relax and let's build our nation. Let's have families. Let's have kids. Let's build our let's build wealth for the country rather than focus on things which the state is doing. And state told at that time itself that you don't worry about, we will take care of everything.
Yes.
So it was a like a dual-edged sword where you had a population tired, battered during the struggle, okay, and they wanted
Yes.
a bit of peace time to relax and do whatever they want, have families, build wealth, have careers, and the state told them, just relax, don't worry, we will take care of everything. Okay. So it was a kind of a dual-edged sword, and because the Hindu elite was already wiped out from 1930s to 40s,
Yeah,
including a lot of Hindu Mahasabha. Sangh was banned. Okay, so a
yeah,
lot of Hindu elites who could have actually guided 1947 onwards the Hindu society to actually
yeah.
somehow retain a part of social capital, that could not happen, and state
Yes.
filled that vacuum. Okay, and we became much more secular and in our nature, and we lost our capital, whatever we had. We had
Yeah.
some capital in 1930s and 40s, but by 47 and 60s it was all gone, evaporated.
Yeah.
So that's my observation. So now we'll veer towards temples. So if you can give like take 5 minutes and just explain how temples were the centers of social capital in ancient India and even pre-British era, where temples which sustained the social capital, it functioned more than a place of worship.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of research on this actually. Bertenstein and many others have done it. There's a reason that whenever kings, new families and dynasties used to come to power, they used to give lands to temples, and that's because these temples were essentially informal kind of centers for governance, education, healthcare in ancient India. Matlab, you got all three. You got hospital, school, library, place of worship, all that stuff you got in one place. And also temples were, because they were managed very efficiently by the priests in that time, this there was also less corruption, which is not the case if you think of in the church. Like the church, if I consider it, the church actually took over lands. Okay, the temples were more like uh, they were kind of organically created out of older existing belief systems. So if you look at it, Jesus was brought in on different parts of Europe. मतलब Jesus था नहीं जहाँ पे, वहाँ पे Jesus को ला दिए, ठीक है. But if you look at how the Hindu temples came around, you don't have the same gods all over India. In different parts of India, you have different gods. And if you look at it, these gods were not, replaced by Brahmin gods. When I say Brahmin gods, I mean the Vedic gods. When I say Vedic gods, I mean Varun, Indra, all these gods. Okay. Let's say I pray to Ma Kali. Okay. Then my local temple will be a Kali temple. And then the temples will be, so ऐसा नहीं है कि unlike the church that said, okay, forget all your old gods and now pray to Jesus Mary. Okay, ऐसा नहीं है. So if you think about it, the temples are actually very democratic areas where your culture, your local rituals, culture, your whatever your belief system is, that is encompassed and that is nurtured in that space. Which also means that if you are a businessman, you can also ask for loans. If you are a doctor, if you're a chikitsak, you can go and treat patients in that area. You can give people a lifestyle choice, lifestyle advice, etc. If you're a teacher, you can go and teach children in the temple. So that kind of thing was there, and that by destroying those centers, I remember one speech by Mohan Bhagwat that actually helped me understand this quite a bit. Actually, he said that why did 9/11 target financial institutions? Why did it target the World Trade Center, Pentagon? Because America mein to church hai. It's not like America doesn't have churches, right? In fact, many of them are mega churches. But America is a wealth-centric country. America's main area of influence is its finances, its financial capitals, its financial institutions. So there was a deliberate targeting of the financial institution. But India was a temple-centric community kind of thing. So if you'd have to destroy the community, you have to destroy the temples. So that's why the temples were systematically destroyed. Not they didn't attack of course they attacked a lot of places, but mainly the temples were attacked because if you destroy the temple, then you destroy the community. If the community is destroyed, then there's no protection for the normal people. If there is no protection for the normal people, then you can charge them jizya and you can convert them easily. So it's a very simple formula, but they have used it, and uska hi variation hai ki in the US they targeted the World Trade Center. They did not target the churches in the US. So that helped me understand a lot, and that's when I realized that actually whoever thought of attacking temples to destroy India was a genius. Like, that guy was a genius. He was a Nazi and a fascist, but he was a genius. But our problem is that we never fully recovered from that, and before we could, when we were free, that's why the Somnath temple issue became so important. Nehru did not want the Somnath temple to be, you know, strengthened. He did not want it to be fixed after so many years of slavery, because he knew, and whatever his handlers knew, that if you start doing good for temples, if you start creating that community again where people can come together and discuss and have all kinds of discussions and help in the community, then the state के ऊपर से तो लोगों का भरोसा उठ जाएगा. They don't have to depend on the state for food, knowledge, education, anything. So anyway, so that's what I meant by the temples. By small temples, I mean, when did I say small temple? Maybe I said it. But I meant that in the sense that, let's say there are instances of where, let's say there's a tribe and they have a certain god or goddess, and they have a tribe hai to bada temple to nahi hai. I can cite examples of the Mollobhum, which is in Bengal. So chota sa ek temple tha and all that, and then the Brahmins were invited, and then it was made into a grand affair, like the grand temples of Vishnupur, which are now terracotta temples, which are, I don't know what the Bengal government has done, but they are there. You can still go and visit them. They are 500 years old almost. So in that sense, many kings used to often take the small temples and make them big temples, that kind of thing. But the culture was not imposed. Matlab, one god from a different part of the country was not imposed on another god in this part of the country or other parts of the country. That's the basic difference between what the Brahmins did and what the church did in Europe. So anyway, we can get back to the topic. Yeah.
Yes. So now we're going to talk about one little bit for 5-10 minutes, and then we'll move to the temple freedom debate that we're going to have. So, as you mentioned very efficiently, that Nehru did not want the temples to be freed or temples to be restored or reinvigorated, because that would ignite the community capital, which was somewhere there, but it was vanished quite significantly. And that could see the revival of Hindu community, Hindu culture, and that would have seen a difference. We would be living in a different Bharat, India today, if that thing could have happened. And that could not happen first because the powers which were governing us they did not want that to happen, and second was that the Hindu leadership was wiped out. Okay, so both, we were unlucky in that sense. That happened.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's come to the temple, temples controlled by the government. Okay. Now, temple control of the government is one aspect of it. Okay, and the other aspect of it is institutions, Hindu institutions specifically, and how much temples were like temples funded, temples plus kings and queens funded Hindu institutions. And today, why temple freedom is one of the most critical points where we could regain our social capital by having our temples governed by Hindus and they work for Hindus.
Yeah. Essentially, I believe that the state, where the state won, was not just by suppressing Hindu capitalism, like in the sense that License Raj laga diya. So now Hindus cannot do business, right? Except his family and friends, whoever were there. So that is the whole reason that we love the Tatas and Birlas and all these people, right? And we hate Ambanis and Adanis because Tatas and Birlas were allowed to do business, unlike everybody else. And not just that, our financial power was severely constrained by the state. So it made us weak. It also, the worst thing the state did was the education function of temples, patshalas, Sanskrit tolls, and all these institutes. Gurukuls. Sanskrit toll, that kind of, anyway. So that these institutes, they were destroyed, and very very, again, a very clever move by the state कि फ्री में देंगे, एडुकेशन फ्री में देंगे, तुमको कोई पैसा नहीं देना पड़ेगा, बट जो देंगे वो जहर है. Okay, so we drank that poison which was free. So there's no free lunch in the world. So now we are paying the price. We are paying the price for 70 years now. Now the problem with all this is that the temples that used to serve as unofficial kind of schools, colleges, higher education institutes, or they would manage schools, colleges, and these kind of institutes, which we still see in Ramakrishna Mission and, like I said, Isha Foundation, Art of Living. They have schools for tribal kids, and Sangh has Saraswati Shishu Mandir and all. Imagine just that if you get an influx of our wealth, your and my wealth, which is there in the temples, which are now being appropriated by the state to build a Hajj house or a madrasa. If our that wealth, that crores of rupees, are managed by efficient people, who are there in the temples, who are religious people who don't necessarily always are corrupt like the government institutes. If these people manage that and create many schools and colleges, crores and crores of rupees, then imagine how many competitors there will be to St. Xavier's, and how many competitors there will be to JNU. Okay. And these will be institutes where children will go and learn some aspects of our culture. Okay. That aspect of freedom will be in our hands. So temple freedom is absolutely necessary for our now a lot of people may argue that okay, temple free karenge to temple nahi chalega, ye hai, wo hai. I don't believe that. I think that if the temples are allowed to function as kind of banks and all that, then the wealth will increase. जैसे SBI को हमने बैंक का ठेका दे रखा है, temples can function as kind of they did actually. In fact, if you look at Gregory Chopin's work, he shows how Buddhist monasteries and old ancient temples and all these, especially he works on Buddhist monasteries. Buddhist monks were essentially venture capitalists. Or yehi same what Sanjeev Sanyal says, the temples were essentially venture capital firms kind of thing. So I don't believe that temples will fall into disarray. They can go into businesses, right? They can help the local business communities. Their profits may increase, or usi profits se we can fund schools. Nobody said that you can't profit. The best thing about temples is the temples, the people are usually not the kind like politicians and babus who are there to steal the money and build their own houses. Typically, that's not the case. Okay, so we can expect that there will be greater accountability, there will be greater investment in education institutes, hospitals. So, I used to, for example, when I was growing up, I heard a lot of bad things about the Sai Baba in Andhra Pradesh, the Satya Sai Baba. And a lot of people told me that I am talking about the Sai Baba who was alive till a few years ago. So, not Shirdi, the Satya Sai Baba. So, and I did not question it because it was obviously cool to be secular and abuse our gurus and all that, our institutes and people. So then I realized that most Bengalis who abused him, they are going to South India to his hospital for their treatments. So then I realized that देखो यही तो problem है. Like we abuse these people, these institutions, these these temples and all that. We say that temples used to just hold wealth, but by doing that we are basically destroying our own sense of community. We are destroying our देखो he may be fraud, ये जो भी fraud what जो भी हो, I don't do we ever question the Maulanas and or pastors? Do we see Christians and Muslims questioning their own people? There are, if you go to the US, watch this series called The Righteous Gemstones. The Righteous Gemstones is a series on you will find on Geo Hotstar. It's a series on this the evangelists in the US. उसको देख के you will understand what fraud is. Okay. So उससे तो कहीं गुना बेहतर है कि even our worst people so called in the Hindu community, they have at least built some hospital or school or whatever. And that's the whole point. Like our the lack of social capital, the over dependence on the state, that has caused us to question our own institutions, while we do not question the institution of the other religions or anybody else. And they don't question their institutions either. So that's the thing.
Okay, so now we are going to take another 10 minutes. So now we're going to be quick fire round, and then we will take audience questions. So now let's come to the solution. Okay.
Yeah.
Today,
Solution.
yeah.
No,
Let's talk about
please. Yeah.
yeah. Solution means let's explore that. Let's say Hindus are about 70% of the India. Okay.
Yeah.
Now all the temples are controlled by the state government. Okay. And now
Yeah.
because we don't have the social capital, one hand, and we have the excessive state control over the lives of Hindus, so that
Yeah.
every aspect of our life is controlled by the state. So we can't afford individually to actually fight with the state. Okay. And then individually we will all be losing. Okay. Now,
True.
politically and socially, what can be done to improve upon this situation which is we have currently?
I guess we'll have to get together like Navavimarsh and wherever we get together, and Jaipur dialogues and all the other whatever we have, like at this point, thanks to again social media and technology, and get together and keep pressurizing the state. What else? Like we can't do street domination. वो तो हमारे से नहीं होगा अभी. So I wish we could, but we can't. For men's rights, for temple freedom, I wish we could take the streets over and block highways in Delhi and all that. We can do Shaheen Bagh style stuff, but we can't do it. We don't want to do it. Also, we actually, most of us have jobs. We can't do it, and that's the other issue. Like we have to then use social media. The narrative war, we have to ask some critical question. Even, of course, we will perhaps when the time comes to vote, most of us will vote for whichever party represents Hindu interest the best, which except BJP nobody does. So that's there. But we must also say that you must also help us out in this way. We can't always keep expecting कि कोई master stroke आएगा. We have to push this kind of narrative onto the political sphere, the Twitter sphere, the YouTube, Twitter, जो भी है, social media, Facebook, whatever, and that just as peacefuls take over the streets and say हाँ हमको ये देना पड़ेगा. So we have to take over the information highway and do that. हमको actual highway तो हमसे नहीं होगा, तो information highway ही सही basically.
Okay, now question number 2.
Yeah.
Politics. So there's one more very important thing which we have. Like I did a podcast yesterday in Bangla where a new political party has emerged in West Bengal. Okay, and they are talking about a lot of things which are pro-Hindu, like ban on cow slaughter, defining minorities. Okay, uh, so so that a lot of funds which are now used for minorities can be used for other things. Okay. So now
yeah,
people have this conception that, okay, now we have a problem that Hindus see only a certain political party or certain organization as the only one which is following the Hindutva narrative. Okay, and now when a new one comes in, and because
yeah,
of the precarious thing we have right now, we see that as a threat to Hindu parties or
unity.
Hindu organizations because they are
Yeah,
new and they will become a kind of a hindrance. Okay, but
yeah,
ideally, we need like tens of such parties so that the political narrative becomes baseline Hindutva. Because
yeah,
if,
yeah,
like if
yeah,
you take democracy, correct, you are 70%. Okay, so
yeah, yeah,
the narrative should be this. But on the other hand, we see things like this happening. So now, tell me, from your perspective, can we have 10 parties who follow Hindutva as a baseline, okay, in next 30 years?
I don't see it happening for one reason, for one major reason. Because if, yeah, I mean, of course, we can all form parties. Even CSK is doing libertarian party in Bengal. That has my blessings, of course. I think that we can have interest groups. Now, nobody says interest group. Matlab, if I say libertarian interest group, then वो cool नहीं है. But if I say Libertarian Party of Bengal, then cool hai, right? So we can have interest groups, but the problem with these small parties is essentially, or any non-BJP type party is, uh, देखो, they get co-opted sometimes by the elite. जैसे, for example, I'll tell you, the Karni Sena. I remember during Padmavat, when the Karni Sena was, hitting school buses and stuff like that, stupid things. Then everyone's rising intolerance, Hindu fascism, and all that stuff. Okay, and a few weeks later, I realized they are campaigning for Congress. Okay, so there are many outfits that are actually apparently, for our cause, and then two days later, I've always found that as a Shiv Sena, right? Shiv Sena, to I always thought was a Hindu party. Then turns out that they're not. So,
Tormuz,
uh,
Tormuz.
Tormuz, exactly. So I'm not saying that these new parties that you're talking about, they will be all bad. I think that, um, like I said, that I believe that Hinduism has always had that space for kind of, dissent as well, and we should keep that alive. But these should be function more like interest groups. Now, if you become a vote katwa, then what ultimately ends up happening is you benefit some CPM or Trinamool and all. And I see this trend among these other parties, the non-BJP parties, the mainstream parties I'm talking about. They are totally interested in the peaceful community. They don't give a damn about Hindus at all. क्योंकि उनको पता है that Hindus are a declining force. Okay, so they know that peaceful community will have the demography to help them. The problem is that they completely ignore us. So what happens is that if BJP's vote share is eroded, then even 1%, 2%, whatever, then we end up benefiting these completely anti-Hindu parties. Okay. So I also don't see that happening, because jo bhi, देखो, at the end of the day, when people have to press a button and vote for a party, and if Hindutva is on your agenda, then you don't have any reliable option but BJP. Or hamara numbers are declining, so BJP still has some numbers, but our numbers, like I said, we are a declining force in the country. So I don't see logically any other party coming up anytime soon. Yes, we can, of course, party होके register करेंगे कोई मतलब you can have kind of like meetings and all that. But just as I'll tell you what, just as the Hindu Mahasabha was there, but during the right before partition, it's completely, everyone voted for Congress. matlab all the cadres of the Hindu Mahasabha campaigned for the Congress so that the Muslim League's majority and power can be destroyed. Matlab Hindu unity hua tha, and the Hindu Mahasabha basically kind of donated its body to Congress. Okay. इन पार्टीज का यही फंक्शन होगा. I don't see any point. I'm not saying BJP is the greatest party in the whole world, but I'm saying that because right now it is the only large party that is Hindu, बाकियों को त्याग देना पड़ेगा. This was the case before partition, but I think that voices are also important. I don't think we should abuse these parties and say तुम भागो यहाँ से. I don't think they are going to be relevant enough to cut votes. Not like Shiv Sena. Shiv Sena bhi when it ultimately came down to proper voting and stuff, when they forgot Bala Saheb's legacy, then they lost in the elections. So ऐसा नहीं है कि Shiv Sena बहुत powerful है and all that. So if these parties are not going to be taken serious, I think that they should flood the information sphere, right? Like Twitter and all that. So we know that the discourse is created by these parties, because only then can the overturn window shift. इंफॉर्मेशन हाईवे ही पकड़ना है, इंफॉर्मेशन हाईवे को अटकना है, जैसे पीसफुल्स डिड ड्यूरिंग शाहीन बाग. वी हैव टू डू दैट ऑन ट्विटर बेसिकली.
Understood. So last question before we go for audience questions is that I think the risk of having only one party to represent your interest, okay, against taking a risk of investing in interest groups or political parties who keep the pressure on BJP to follow and toe the line of Hindutva. How do you think how that strategy works?
I think that, like I said, I see Bengal, right, and some other states where Hindu population is declining rapidly. There, if let's say tomorrow there's election in Bengal in 2026 and some party comes and it takes away 1% of BJP's vote, even if there's 1%, they will lose. But BJP or TMC का जो अभी difference है of 5%, that goes, right, like that reduces further. So BJP loses a lot of its crucial seats and loses the election. Bengal mein there is no option, I believe. And I think the electorate also knows. So even if there are new Hindu parties, not a lot of people will vote. Mane, at most I can see maybe 5,000-10,000 people voting for them. That's nothing. So that I don't see development in Bengal anytime soon. Given the situation in other parts of the country with regards to temple freedom, libertarianism, Hindu, Hindu rights, Hindu culture, that kind of war, men's rights, all these things that come up eventually. That aspect is that we have to see them as interest groups. Like if you create another party, I'm not against creating party. Like I'm nobody to even tell people that party mat banao. But the problem is that these parties will be unable to actually come to the level of BJP. यही है, मतलब the BJP is a product of the Sangh's networking and the Jan Sangh and many other movements, organic movements for 70 years. होके फिर BJP what it is today, right? These parties do not have that networking and all that. मतलब we have seen Swatantra Party, we have seen Hindu Mahasabha completely withered away and die. So these parties cannot sustain themselves beyond a point. उनको अभी जो है कि because BJP is there, that they have importance, and I think they should capitalize on that and change the narrative. They should try to change they should try to pressurize the BJP for more and more reforms. Election contest कर सकते हैं, but it won't work. Like I don't see it happening. Like for example, I don't see anyone voting for these small parties anytime soon. I don't see that happening. If Hindutva is your main issue, that's the thing.
Understood. So let's go back to our audience questions. So we'll take them one by one. And the link, if people can want to join the stream and ask the me and Academic Man directly on stream, you can join it via the link I have shared in the members only stream, members only post, so you can get it there itself. Or else I'll take the questions from here itself. So let's
Yeah,
go with questions. This is a very interesting question from Abhay. What is your view on classical liberalism impacting social capital?
classical liberalism was actually not so harmful per se. So the problem with classical liberalism is that it accommodates everyone's view. It seeks to accommodate everyone's views, which is a problem. Like for example, if I say that okay, I mean fascists also have a view. When I say fascist, you know what I mean, who I mean, right? कि इनका भी व्यू है, वैलिड है, व्यू है, हाँ. So if I allow that, then they take up the space. This is the problem with classical liberalism. Like if you allow everyone to speak, then you're screwed essentially. The more radical elements will always take over. It doesn't matter how, if they are a minority, because they will have the loudest voice essentially.
Yeah. So we have with us Mr. Munshi Shastri. He is one of our channel members. So he wants to share his thoughts and opinions on temple freedoms and social capital in general. Mr. Shastri, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think one thing that's lacking in the entire temple freedom conversation is solutions, right? Policy planks and everything else. So I want to give an example. So take the Ram Janmabhoomi movement. The reason why it was so successful was because there was a goal, right? Like people could aspire to a goal. Mandir wahi banega. In the same sense, I think temple freedom movements should go beyond just stating the problem. I think at this point in time, all I've heard is like, oh, there's a problem with the current setup, right? HRC is doing this, our freedoms are being trampled upon, the government's not doing a good job of maintaining, etc. I mean, it's just a long laundry list of problems. What's lacking is what that end goal would look like. Are we going to make our temples? How would you? What would a privatized temple look like? Is the board setup what we need? Is a trust setup what we need? Should we make it into a corporation? Right? I mean, Japan has corporations. Their temples are run as corporations, like they're called religious corporations. Is that something that we need to explore? I mean, unless we bring about a bunch of policy, bunch of or set goals, I don't see any kind of movement going anywhere.
I don't think that we have to necessarily always uh, create. So I was actually talking to somebody about this today, that sometimes the end goal kind of thing that works. Of course, you have to give some positive image that ये कर रहा है तो इसका effect क्या होगा, that kind of thing you have to tell people. Otherwise, people, why would they support your cause, right? I get that part, but given that, I don't think we have to go into a lot of intricacies in the initial stage. Like we have to give like I said, like people did not think that Ram Mandir वही बनाएंगे बोला था, but that did not happen for the next 40 years or so, right? That they broke the structure, then it was stopped, then nobody knew what to do, then court case chala, ye wo hoke, and then finally we have a government, and then it happened, right? But the one thing that happened is they first destroyed the dhacha, right? And that's the whole point. If you give people a kind of understanding of what this is infringing on, like if you give the Hindu community a vision that okay, because your temples are locked up, your child has to go to highly paid hospitals and schools and this and that. So first free the temples, then we'll perhaps, of course, there will be a structure. I'm pretty sure that not just me, many people think about this, so people better than me will come up with better solutions. I don't deny that. But pehle to, you have to break the law. That is essential. But I agree that there must be some some kind of lollipop, some kind of carrot at the end. Otherwise, you can't just say that कि हाँ टेम्पल फ्री होगा, टेम्पल फ्री होने से मेरा क्या, so that kind of thing. I get that, but like I said, that if you plan too much, it kind of, most people won't agree on the plans, and ऐसा हाँ corporation नहीं होगा, ये trust लगेगा, trust नहीं होगा, board होगा, then some people say, oh, there must be caste reservations in the board and this and that. इससे लेकर ultimately बेकार होगा if you think about it. Whereas if you at this point, I'm not saying that this won't happen in the future. In the future, if the temples are freed, then we can have the discussion what to do. But at this point, it's like you're just basically throwing money at madrasas and stuff, which is happening in Bengal and other parts. The bhaktas are giving money to the temples, giving crores and crores of rupees, and that money is totally going to other communities for their welfare. So that at least must be stopped. जैसे you can even think of the Brexit movement. They never actually thought what would happen after Brexit. But they said, भाई तुम्हारा जो पैसा है वो स्पेन में जा रहा है, वो फ्रांस में जा रहा है, वो जर्मनी जा रहा है. And people are like, fuck, that's true. And then they were like, okay, let's do Brexit. Screw that. And they did Brexit. And now they are screwed in a different way. But in a way, perhaps it's, I don't know what will happen with Britain after this, but fact of the matter is they did Brexit. They did get out of the, that thing, the EU. So I'm saying this is the Brexit thing. Let's do the Brexit. Then we'll see what will happen. At least we'll get some freedom relative to what we have now. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
No, I think we need to take like the current players into confidence, right? So the thing is, we talk about temple freedoms as, let's say, private citizen. Let's just stick with that term, right? But we have archakas, we have matati buddies. I'm primarily talking about southern temples, because if you need a temple freedom movement, it has to come from the south. Either way, north mein sab, it's a completely different ball game. But we have archakas, we have matati buddies, we have a very convoluted temple ownership structures. You have former royalty still doing temple stuff, right? So, and these are generally, they are the voice that holds weight in the temple. Now, if say a mutt, I'm not going to name any mutt, otherwise there'll be a raid on them. So if a mutt says that, okay, I am standing for temple freedom, right, and I want to free this temple, they immediately bring a whole crowd with them, right? Like they'll immediately bring like 10,000, 20,000 people just within their own institutions, and they'll bring them. And then you can think about how much more support that they can bring in the back. But if you don't provide a solution, I mean, the first thing that any basic Matatipadi would ask you is that, ठीक है, I'm fine with temple freedoms, but there are solution kya hai? Right? You at least need to have something on your plate to. You're right. Maybe we're not advanced enough to have a concrete solution, but we should at least start that conversation, right? You should at least have something on your plate saying that.
Of course. I think we should give something to the stakeholders who are there. Otherwise, why the hell would they, support it in the first place? That must be there. That level of control must be given to some of the existing leadership, if they are Hindu. My other contention is that sometimes there are non-Hindus on the board, and they have a say in what's happening.
You're thinking about the board. I'm saying these are Matati buddies are usually not part of the board, right? But they have like a sort of nominal. See, usually it's like, board mein sab Christian nahi rehte hai. Board mein at least there's like 3 or 4 people that's Christian. One is a district magistrate or something like that. There's some
Yeah, yeah,
nominal folks from the mutt and all that, right? So,
yeah.
in that sense, like, even the folks who are at least within the board from the mutt, they at least respect the Matati buddies immensely, right? It might seem nominal, but the point is that you still have to sort of take that faction. You have to think in terms of factions within the board itself. You have to take that faction into confidence.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. This must be a very, I'm talking about it, and this is not at all. We can't do it without taking the leaders of these institutions into confidence. The people who are actually engaged with these communities and all that. We can't do that without them. But I believe that the time has come for us to kind of see this as the injustice as that it is. Matlab, uh, of course, we have to consult these people and all that. But at the end of the day, what we want is basic fair treatment. Matlab, if you are giving the church and the other communities so much power to determine their fate outside of the state, it won't create the kind of so it's unfair to me, it's unfair to you, it's unfair to others who are not of those faiths, who are not Christians and Muslims.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
that
no, I
that
mean,
aspect must be definitely remedied at some level. Sometimes
yeah,
like it takes us for granted all the time, right? So that aspect must be challenged. Even if
yes,
that means like protracted negotiations with these great Mathadipatis and all these people, and some will not agree. Some will not agree. Just like a lot of princely states did not did not agree with Vallabhai Patel. So that's difficult, but still we must ask the BJP to take the lead on this. Matlab, dekho, that is the bigger issue, I think, whether the BJP has the guts to do it or not at this point. Because essentially, if, let's say, the BJP's leadership and all these temple leadership and the Sangh and all, they sit together and decide on something, obviously everyone won't be happy. Sabka happy, nobody will be completely happy fully.
I, I
But
think
but they have to kind of pressurize some aspects of it, I guess. Yeah.
no, I think I'm fairly confident that conversation is happening between the BJP and Mathatipati. Because here's the thing, right?
Ah,
Like, Kamakoti, so not Kamakoti, Shringeri Mutt,
yeah, yeah,
they are busy re-establishing mandirs in Kashmir,
true. I've heard that.
right?
I heard
So
that.
yeah, so it only means that they're having a lot of conversations with the BJP. नहीं तो
Yeah,
वो कभी नहीं होएगा वो. So I don't think they are centering all their conversations on temple freedom, but वो side conversation definitely चल
ah,
रहा है.
true, true. No,
So
maybe it's not even temple freedom per se. I'm not. But what I'm trying to say is essentially this. Sometimes what happens is, let's say you start on a movement and you don't achieve the whole thing, right? Like, so let's say you start with UCC, but you end up just with banning triple talaq, which is stupid, by the way. But the whole point is that, let's say, so we start with the temple freedom thing. We push the absolute, and then maybe they agree कि हाँ हाँ Hindus को institutions देंगे, okay, to keep us quiet, right? But even if that is achieved, right? Even if the state can achieve, even if we can pressurize the state into that, then that's a big win compared to what we have now.
no,
So maybe
and
the temple
we
will be
shouldn't
there.
stop at that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
This is another
agreed.
criticism. This is another criticism I have for the broader Hindus and Hindutva movement. For being Hindus, we think very linearly like Christians, right?
Hmm.
हमारा पूरा our entire concept of time and temporalism is right. So, but
Yeah,
उसके
yeah,
बावजूद भी we
exactly.
think linearly. So if we get
True.
say even basic like let's say one kind of institution thing, we shouldn't stop there. It should
Yeah,
actually trigger the next cycle of okay, next cycle of movement. Okay, अभी institution मिला, अभी institution को हिंदू करो. The
True,
other thing is like,
true, true.
why should we treat Abrahamic institutions fairly? I don't think we should. We should just simply decolonize them and say that, yo, this is not the lay of the land. You have to basically like circle around us. Japan does this quite successfully. Why should we stoop any lower? I mean,
But
this is something.
Islam is the largest growing religion in Japan. वो भी है.
वो भी है, but it's also in absolute terms, it's not that much.
No, I know. It's like maybe 1% or something, but
One,
that's
no, even
that
it's also
one
growing
भी
from
नहीं
a.
है, शायद I think less than one.
It's growing from a low. It's growing from a low base. So I think that statistical. Well, see, the thing is like Islamists love to sprinkle propaganda around. Reality is completely something different. The other thing is
Yeah.
like we haven't seen Japan react to it yet. But if you go
Uh-huh.
back in the past, Japan has been even under its current post 45 constitution has always maintained its let's call it dharmic edge, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's an accurate term, but for the sake of conversation, we'll just say dharmic edge. I think we should take inspiration from them. We should take inspiration from Israel and basically say that no, we're not going to treat you equally, right? So
No,
your
I
institution.
totally agree with you. The problem with what I see is that Japan and Israel both have invested heavily on soft power. If you see Japan, the Japan Foundation, they have heavily invested in. I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of literature on the modernization of Japan in academia. Matlab, Japan is the country to be like. Why I'm telling you this is, Japan was the first Asian country to be modernized under the Meiji regime, but of course the roots were in the Tokugawa era. But if you look at it that way, the Japanese developed very fast, but they also later on, even in the post-war period, they developed again, like 45 ke baad bhi they developed very rapidly, right? But they invested crores and crores of whatever they have, yen, on that image, right? So what they did was the Japan Foundation kept writing book after book, paper after paper on the greatness of Japanese industry and the greatness of Japanese culture and stuff. Israel heavily invested in studies on the Holocaust, movies, all that stuff, Schindler's List, all that kind of stuff. So in a sense that these guys, even if right now the anti-Israel sentiment is there a lot, even then they have that, like, we know that they were oppressed in the Holocaust. We can't deny it, right? So the same way, we have to invest again in soft power.
Yeah, I
Varna,
think our,
when you kind of want to assert yourself, the first question will be कि हाँ तुम तो भाई Brahmanical patriarch हो, तुम क्या करोगे? Like that kind of thing. So
right. So I think
is,
like I think our thrust should be decolonization. That should be one of the pillars. It should not be the
of
only
course,
thing. But
yeah,
our thing should be decolonization. Like
yeah.
getting rid of Catholic churches, land holding, the Waqf Act, Sharia law should all be just part of decolonization. It is decolonization in a sense.
अभी
And
इसके बाद नवंबर्स को पकड़ के क्या क्या होगा तुमको नहीं पता.
I'm
You
sorry.
and I were hidden. But if you guys remember Shiny Ahuja, he was that actor in Life in a Metro and Bhool Bhulaiya and all. He made a movie called Sins in 2005. And then a few years later, his career was completely derailed by a rape case that I don't think is real. So the movie Sins was about a church pastor, and you know what may have happened. Anyway, so uh, so let's see. Let's not perhaps let's not openly talk about these aims. Yeah, we can talk about them
No,
later.
I'm. We should just bring in Esther Dandraj. No, I think the time is now. Like, I mean, it's up to Navavimash, but we should still openly talk about this. We should make that decolonization narrative. but हम नहीं करेंगे तो
No,
और कौन करेगा? Right? Either way, I'm gonna.
decolonization is fine. Now we have to now then we can't always state the aims explicitly of decolonization.
Yeah,
We have
that's fine.
some aims, of course. The Waqf Act is one aim in decolonization. Actually, if you look at it, the peaceful community is easier to talk about in that sense. Anyway,
Okay, we have with us Rishabh Agarwal, who is also a
yeah,
member. So,
yeah.
Rishabh, you had something to say about temple freedom, and also after that, we will MS Academicman will ask the question that you answer will be there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rishabh.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Uh, I just have like one question, is like temple freedom, and it's not exactly the same, but there's a big overlap. I feel that temple freedom is like one aspect of a larger problem that we need to really focus on, and that is building, institutions free of this. Now,
True.
in that, yeah, temples are one aspect, but we have a lot of different things. We have not just social infrastructure, but actual infrastructure also that we need to focus on. Like one cannot happen without the other. You also need economic power along with social power. One without the other is not very useful. So my question really is like, is there anything that individual communities can do in order to build all of these situations up? Now there are already temples that exist, sure, but there's also an aspect of what do we do moving forward, and what do we do in the moving forward in the sense like we will be creating new temples. We need to create new temples. We can't just keep relying on the old ones, and we need to make sure that we do them right. How do we set those institutions up? That is also a conversation that we should be having alongside temple freedoms. Otherwise it just becomes a very one-dimensional thing. Suppose we free temples today, and 5 years later another congress style government comes in, and then that's gone. I don't see how, even if we do achieve it, it will not be a very long term solution. What is the long term solution to this? And that is where I was tying in, my comment over here. Like, I don't know if it's been studied. I personally don't know the answer to this, but my community has been able to do a lot of that. Create institutions, not just temples, but educational institutions, which have been rather free of, government oversight, and that has helped at least our community remain very independent minded. We are not reliant on government funds for our education, and we're not really reliant on government, or rather, you're not subjected to a lot of government propaganda. Of course, there is a lot that will happen because of the school boards and everything. But even then, at least we can have open conversations in our schools. And it is something that I did see coming from a Birla school. Price is also an issue, yes. And that is something that my community has also not done very well, because my community schools are expensive. But is there a template here? Like, how did this happen? And is there a template here that can be used by others to create their own institutions that is still relatively free of government control? We've done it for schools, we've done it for temples. Can this be replicated, or is this some sort of exceptionalism here because of us having a relatively high per capita income? That being said, I came from a family. It's also a cultural thing because I come from a family that's not been very, uh, not been very wealthy in the past. But even then, we never felt the need to stand in front of a ration shop. We never really felt the need to go and use state funds to subsidize our living. Not because we were even getting anything from these societal institutions, but more because there was more of a culture around it कि नहीं लेना है, जो करना है खुद से करेंगे. Might spend less, we might make less, but जो करना है खुद से करेंगे. This is something that I find very unique. As I grew up, I realized that a lot of India does not have this attitude, does not have this mentality. What can be done? What can be done to inculcate this mentality within other communities, so that many such parallel systems that work for other demographics can also come up? That's my question by and large. And I'll just leave with one example, to support your argument. The last question about what Japan does right. So when I was doing my MBA, we had these case study discussions that was going on about different models of economics that were being used in different countries, and we were talking about India, and then we were talking about Japan. And my professor over there was really critical of all of these big conglomerates in India and in the US. He was giving us very negative opinions about the Standard Oil in the past days. Those were uh, the people who were like monopolizing oil, and the Tatas and Birlas, and how they try to monopolize industries within India. But then they came to Japan, and he started talking about all of these great business practices that they have, where each big company has a lot of these small satellite companies which provide parts for whatever car they are manufacturing, and then they have a bank under their control which provides easy funding for
Japan has one of
you
the
know
highest suicide rates, by the way. Yeah.
yeah, sure. But the point here was that he was explaining monopolies and oligopolies that these Japanese companies have created, but because of the way that they have marketed it so well, they're looking at it as a strength. But when it comes to India and the US, then it becomes a problem for free market
Yes.
capitalism, but not for Japan. So that's an example of how well Japan has marketed itself.
Absolutely. I think that okay, let's get to some of your. You have some interesting, important questions. So, your first question is how do we get other communities to think like Marwaris? It's very difficult. I can assure you one thing though. The independence of Marwaris is being called under question in different ways. Like there's a book by Divya Cherian against Marwaris. Okay, and I think the Marwaris are the next line of target by the left. अभी तक क्या हुआ था कि Marwaris basically did what the Tatas did. They paid off the goons. That's why they got some of their freedoms. Like they said that okay ठीक है तुम हमारे दुकान में तोलाबाजी मत करो तुम कहीं और करो and we'll be safe. And I admire that. I'm not going against the community. I think that's admirable and I think it should be replicated. And the closest thing we have to that is perhaps caste, institutions, caste associations. But most problem with the Indian state and how it's structured is that most caste associations don't talk about kind of how to empower themselves. मतलब आत्मनिर्भर नहीं बनेंगे. They talk about how to get reservations. Okay. So unlike that, the Marwaris did not ask for reservations. The Marwaris did not ask for dole outs and all that. But remember that it's not easy. Like this kind of thing. That's why Marwaris are also not liked by many people. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult to reproduce because most people are now addicted to handouts, dole outs. So the only way again, यही मैं बोलूंगा कि we need more institutions like Birlas which impart more dharmic education, then people might become more like the Marwaris. But एक मारवाड़ी को भी स्कूल खोलने के लिए या टेम्पल कम्युनिटी या कहीं like if you want to open a pro Hindu institute, you have to jump through hoops of fire and appease many people, bribe many people and all that stuff. That whole thing is completely against us, which the missionaries and others have not had the problem. So that's one. Number two is when you say that, what was your second question? I forgot. Like, it was a pretty long one. Like, your first question was, how do we replicate this? I believe through education. And I said how. And what was the next one that you asked? I kind of forgot that.
And the next one was this mindset. Like for my
Oh,
community, like our language is not
yeah, yeah,
recognized. It's considered a dialect of Hindi. We don't have reservations. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but even then, like for whatever reason, we don't ever look for dole and it's true for a lot of other communities, not just ours. Honestly, even Gujaratis do that very well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, how do you create this mindset?
through more dharmic education. I don't think. Dekho, till the 19th century, Bengalis were very much into business. Like Bengal, Calcutta was built by businessmen, right? But
Yes.
right after that, some things went wrong. Like the family structures were destroyed, and Brahmo Samaj was created, and that destroyed our kind of identity a lot. So in that sense, these were the Bengali business class was destroyed properly. So yeah, Atmanirbharta का जो चीज है, the more I believe that the more traditional education we can impart, the more Atmanirbharta that will come. The less the less we are asking for dolouts from the state, including education, the more we can actually develop the attitude that you're talking about. But till we actually empower Hindu organizations and gurus and temples and all these people who want to do some work, good work, till then our hands are tied. I don't see anything new happening at any rate in this regard.
Okay.
One more thing that, sorry, I thought.
No, no. See, academic man, because the time is over, so we
No,
will
no, that's fine.
continue
Yeah, we
the
can take.
continue
Can you
continue
just
the
say
entire.
one line, Rishabh, finish it, and then we can go on to the next line? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just
the
saying. Yeah, yeah, I'm just saying that academic man, if you like want to drop out, you can drop. We'll continue the conversation with the members and people. So
Yeah,
you're free
I'll
to
be there
drop
for five
whenever
more
you want.
minutes. Yeah.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
think 5 more minutes I can then answer a few more questions and then go. Yeah.
Yeah, go Rishabh, go ahead.
Just one line. Yeah. Just
thanks.
finish it.
Yeah, I'll be very quick and drop off. Yeah. How do we make sure that temples don't get brought back under the state next time a Congress government comes into power? That was my final part of the question.
ये cyclical है. Like basically once you free them, you have to give people incentives to keep them free. मतलब if people are getting good stuff like education, healthcare, and all that stuff from temples, then they will resist it. There will be movements, but because our temples were destroyed, a lot of them, and whatever, then we could not see those good things. That's why when they were taken over, we weren't watching. And like Navamar said earlier that we were tired after 1,000 years almost of 800 years of slavery. We were tired to fight for our thing. Now we are not. Now we are stronger in that sense. Then we can fight, I believe.
All right, thank you for that. I'll drop off.
Yeah, so we'll take one more question and then. Okay, so I think let me see which is
Aryan
the
invader.
best. Aryan Invader will speak, but let's take the final question before we. Okay, let's take this out of syllabus question. What is about SIR, Special Intensive Revision? Last
Revision.
question.
Yeah, that is that's going to create some issues because from my estimate, in the last Lok Sabha election, almost 30 to 40 lakh fake votes were cast in West Bengal. If you see the Lok Sabha seats, out of each Lok Sabha there are like 7 or 8 Vidhan Sabhas, right? So one Vidhan Sabha would have like 2 lakh extra votes for 2 lakh nahi hoga, matlab 30,000, 40,000 votes for TMC extra. So imagine if there is actual proper revision, then they can't rig the election that bad this time if there is proper revision. So the leads will go down. Usse bhi, even after they rigged in 42 in Lok Sabhas, there was still the BJP had a lead in I think 110 Vidhan Sabha seats if you consider the Lok Sabha results. So the BJP can actually legit win 140 seats easily if the SIR is implemented properly.
Okay, so this is a very common question which comes up, and you also mentioned it a couple of times. Does BJP wants to win or it doesn't wants to win?
I
Which
think it
pendulum you
wants
are?
to win. I think it wants to win because 240 हो गया है अभी ट्रम्प भी छोड़ा मार दिया है पीछे, तो I think consolidation must happen inside the country. That's why you are seeing some steps being taken suddenly.
Okay, I think like we have taken all the other questions. So I will take it.
Yeah.
So you can take a lead. We'll continue this discussion
No, I
with
think
few members.
if Aryan Invader has any question, then
Yeah, go ahead,
he can.
Aryan Invader. You are a lucky draw today. Go ahead.
Actually, namaskar to both of you.
Mm.
So, I had something on Marwadis. If academic man can answer this, that is, Marwadis and Gujaratis have been traditionally mercantile communities. So, their way of growing businesses is not through education. Their way of growing businesses has been through traditional passing off their let's say family legacy, and most of their businesses are in unorganized sector, which
Yeah.
helps them to save taxes unlike other communities, because they get
Yeah.
into organized sector because
Yeah.
they start their businesses after educating themselves.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
think this works to the advantage of Marwadis and Gujaratis?
Yeah. No, what was the last part of your question? I couldn't hear that. The organized sector, unorganized sector, then what did you say?
Does this work to the advantage of Marwadis and Gujaratis?
Of course,
Because we
देखो,
work in the unorganized sector more than the organized sector. Because we are traditionally mercantile communities.
Yeah.
And one more thing about Marwadis is that they always have a good relationship with whoever is in power. The industrialist, whether it's the CPM or the TMC or anyone, at least in Kolkata, major Marwadi industrialists will give them money though they don't like the party. They may hate the
True.
party, but they will still give the money. That
True.
is also, even to the British, they did that.
Yeah.
That's why Marwadis are also hated.
Yeah. No, देखो, you can't blame people for see why is it that we have a proper organized and a proper unorganized sector? Because certain the government has overreach in certain places, the government does not have, the state has overreach and does not have overreach in certain areas, right? Like, for example, if I want to be a stock trader, I have to pay Nirmala Tai certain amount of tax, right? But if I do a clothes business or a kind of whatever chota mota wo chudiyo ka business, this that whatever, then I don't have to give taxes per se. But this is just this is because the state essentially demonizes businesses, right? Like Marwadis found a workaround around it, and they benefit from it, and that's why they give their Brahmin Bhojan, jo CSK बोलता है Brahmin Bhojan, their version of that is essentially giving the gundas, whoever is there, जो भी party का गुंडा है उसको पैसा दे दो. But that is fairly common. I respect that attitude. That means that you have a workaround around the problems. You did not license राज हो गया मतलब business छोड़ देंगे, ऐसा नहीं है. They said that okay, करेंगे, करना पड़ेगा, लाइसेंस का पैसा देके करना पड़ेगा. So I think that's
छोड़ रहे हैं.
to have.
That's the point.
हाँ.
पर अब छोड़ रहे हैं, अब कॉर्पोरेट में जाना है, जॉब करना है, वो वाली माइंडसेट.
I have seen that. I have seen many Marwadis actually becoming like Bengalis, and I was horrified. So I was like, many of them are mimicking Bengalis, like they're talking like Bengalis, and I was like, I even met some couples who don't want to get married, and I was shocked. Like, I was like, yaar, kuch bhi bano, Bengali mat bano, right? So anyway, so the point is that, I mean, don't take these aspects of Bengalis. Take maybe, I don't know, national freedom struggle ka aspect le lo, wo hai. But if you decide not to get married because Bengalis are not getting married, and that's the trendy thing right now in the West and all these places. So that aspect, I guess, is not good, and that shows you the problem of kind of leaving the education sector again, outside. Like, I get it that Marwadis has established their own schools, but वो schools में जो मतलब पढ़ाना है, that I guess they did not essentially control. Like, you get my point, right? Like they don't.
The
They built
content is that of the leftist. They may establish schools, but the
exactly.
content that is being taught
मतलब बिरला स्कूल
is
जाओगे फिर भी आर्यन इन्वेशन थ्योरी पढ़ोगे ना. You won't study, you won't read on Netaji Subhas. You will read Gandhi. So that's the whole problem. Like essentially that's why I respect the Marwaris for having a workaround around the state. They don't give a damn. But ultimately the state is so powerful that even the powerful Marwaris they are losing out eventually.
yeah, that is
So
happening.
it's
Sorry, you were saying something. I thought.
no, that's it. That's yeah, please. Yeah.
Another thing that I've been noticing in the Marwari community is that when Marwaris were not into formal education, they were
Yeah.
more self-reliant. The moment
Yeah.
our parents started sending us into foreign, sorry, not foreign, but actually it's foreign, but into formal education, we became more like clerk-minded. That we want to work, we want a job,
Yes.
we don't
Yes.
want to
Yes.
do business
Mekole
because our
Putra. Mekole
education
Putra.
system is designed like that.
Yes.
Another
Yes.
issue is, I think Marwari community will be destroyed by feminism. I'm pretty sure about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
will
You're
happen
right. You're right. I can
because
see it happening.
most of the Marwari businesses were family-run businesses, and
Yeah.
when there is feminism, there is no family. You cannot expect a healthy family. So that will happen with Marwari.
That's happening already as we speak. It's happening. It's not in the distant future. Like I said, many
I,
Marwadi young
I
people
have
don't get
some
married. Like
examples actually.
the first thing we knew about Marwadi girls was and boys was that they get married early. Nowadays, that's not happening. So you're screwed essentially.
Yeah. Actually, I have more points to put out, but I think that will consume your time, so I won't bother you
ठीक
with
है
that.
तुम्हारे लिए 2 मिनट और चलो.
चलो 2 मिनट ठीक है. तो एक मुझे टेम्पल फ्रीडम पे बात करनी थी कि खाली टेम्पल फ्रीडम की बात नहीं है. आई थिंक हिंदू सोसाइटी के माइंडसेट में भी एक प्रॉब्लम है. मैं क्यों कह रहा हूँ कि वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में तो टेम्पल फ्रीडम है, राइट?
True.
ओके, फिर
I
भी
think, as far as I know,
हमने
yeah, these are mostly American temples and all. I've never heard them being under government control and all that. Yeah.
राइट, पर हमारी प्रॉब्लम ये है कि वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में भी हमने टेम्पल्स बनाए पर उसका इकोसिस्टम तो नहीं बनाया, स्कूल्स, हॉस्पिटल्स और ये सब. तो हिंदूज के भी माइंडसेट में ये प्रॉब्लम है कि हम टेम्पल को खाली प्रार्थना का स्थल मानते हैं, ना कि पूरा व्यवस्था के रूप में देखते हैं उसको कि वो पूरा समाज चलाते. तो मुझे लगता है ये मानसिकता में भी परिवर्तन आना चाहिए. आप आपको लगता है क्या ऐसा?
No, I agree with you. But that's the whole problem. Like, for example, what the Jews did, right? Like, जैसे Jews ने they built their synagogues and their whole the structure there. But Jews also kind of I mean, in the West, it's difficult to not go into a formal school college kind of thing. I'll tell you why. Like, even though there is homeschooling among Christians, but जो Jews है, जो Indians है, Hindus basically, uh, they have to excel in the more traditional formal education route, right? So you will you will see Jews go to the synagogue and pray and stuff, and then they will attend Harvard or Princeton or something. So uh, they will not completely give up that aspect. Like they don't have a similar thing. But what they can do, what the Jews have done is they've tried to capture these institutes through money. Okay. I don't think Hindus do that. Like even when Hindu businessmen donate to Harvard and all these, they don't donate for the betterment of the society. They donate to the leftists. Okay. So I think you're right about that. But given that we can't, we have to then try to establish, like I said, we have to establish our own versions of St. Xavier's and St. Stephen's and this and that, and then I think we can perhaps come to a situation where we can compete. But ये तो बनने में ही 20 साल लग जाएंगे. So we have to start ASAP as soon as possible. So yeah.
हाँ, मतलब वही है कि बनने में टाइम तो लगेगा पर शुरुआत कहीं से करनी पड़ेगी. नहीं करेंगे तो कुछ भी नहीं।
Anyway, I'll take your leave, all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and great conversations, and thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. Yes.
Thank
So
you,
Abhay,
academic man. So actually, I have two more points. I would have liked to address them to academic man also, but then we had time constraints. तो मैं रख देता हूँ अपने कुछ बिंदु।
go ahead. Go ahead.
एक है कि मॉडर्नाइजेशन की वो जो डीकॉलोनाइजेशन की बात हुई थी, मैं हमारे सोच में क्या समस्या देखता हूँ। आनंद श्रीधर जी ने भी इस पर बात की थी कि हम लोग क्या सोचते हैं ना, मॉडर्नाइजेशन इज वेस्टर्नाइजेशन। हम लोग ये नहीं सोचते कि अपने कल्चर को डेवलप करना मॉडर्नाइजेशन, खाली वेस्ट से रिप्लेस कर देना नहीं। जैसे मैं उदाहरण देता हूँ कि मान लीजिए वेस्ट में पहले आया था क्लासिकल वेस्टर्न म्यूजिक का उदाहरण दे रहा, फिर आया आपका जैज, फिर आया हिप हॉप, फिर आया रैप। भले ही पूरा म्यूजिक चेंज हो गया हो, पर है सब वेस्ट की ही देन, उन लोग के ही म्यूजिक से डेवलप। हमारे यहाँ मॉडर्नाइजेशन क्या समझा जाता है, इंडियन क्लासिकल म्यूजिक को वेस्टर्न वेस्टर्न रैप से रिप्लेस कर दो, दैट इज मॉडर्नाइजेशन। वहां पे प्रॉब्लम है। तो इस संदर्भ में मैंने देखा है कि दो एक्सट्रीम्स हैं। एक बोलते हैं कि वैदिक काल में चले जाओ, जैसा उस समय था वैसा करो, और दूसरा कहते हैं वेस्टर्न कल्चर को अपना लो। ये नहीं है कि हम लोग अपने पुराने कल्चर को डेवलप करके आज के संदर्भ में कैसे लाए। ये एक मेरा पॉइंट था मॉडर्नाइजेशन और कॉलोनाइजेशन और डीकॉलोनाइजेशन पे। एक मेरा पॉइंट था मेंस राइट्स पे। मैं आपको कोर्ट का एक डिसीजन बताता हूँ, आप बताना ये कितना विचित्र है। पति पर और उनके पिता पर पत्नी ने सेक्सुअल मिसकॉन्डक्ट का आरोप लगाया, राइट। उसके बाद पति ने डिवोर्स फाइल किया। ये नहीं कहा कि पत्नी को जेल भेजो, झूठा आरोप लगाया, या उसको फाइनेंशियल कंपेंसेशन देने को बोले, नहीं, डिवोर्स मांगा। कोर्ट ने आपको पता है क्या डिसीजन दिया? कोर्ट ने बोला कि पति ने क्योंकि बाद में डिवोर्स फाइल किया है, तो पत्नी के एलिगेशंस भले ही अनसब्सटैंशिएटेड है पर वो मैलिशियस नहीं है, इसीलिए हम पति को डिवोर्स नहीं देंगे। सोचिए, आपको उस पत्नी के साथ एक छत के नीचे रहना पड़ेगा जो पत्नी ने आप पर और आपके पिता पर सेक्सुअल मिसकॉन्डक्ट के आरोप लगाए। ये हमारा सिस्टम है, और आपको लगता है कि पुरुष और स्त्री में विश्वास इससे बढ़ेगा। तो ये जुडिशरी ने, पहली बात तो हमारे लॉज घटिया, एनजीओज ने दबाव डालकर घटिया लॉज बनवाए, फिर कोर्ट्स के डिसीजन और इंटरप्रिटेशन भी इतने महा घटिया है, मतलब वो इतने एक्सट्रीम पे चले जाते हैं कि जिसकी कोई हद नहीं। कि पति यदि पत्नी का फोन चेक करने को बोले तो दैट इज एन ऑफेंस अंडर 498 है, दैट इज क्रूएल्टी ऑन वाइफ। सोचिए, वो जेल जा सकता है, उसके वो उस ऑफेंस में जेल जा सकता है। एक पॉइंट मैं डाउरी पर बोल देता हूं, फिर मेरा हो जाएगा। डाउरी का डेफिनेशन देखिए। पहली बात तो कैसे फेक क्राइम कैटेगरीज बनाया जाता है। ओके, डाउरी का डेफिनेशन क्या है? यदि पत्नी या उसका परिवार वाला, ठीक है, सॉरी,
Yeah, go ahead.
हाँ, पत्नी या उसका परिवार वाला, राइट, कुछ भी पैसा देता है पति या उसके फैमिली को, तो उसको ऑफेंस माना जाएगा और उसमें दोनों साइड के लोग जेल जाएंगे। ये प्रावधान था, पर पत्नी का साइड कभी जेल नहीं जाता है। अब पैसों के देने लेने पर कब से अपराध हो गया? मैं ये सोच सोच के पगला गया हूं कि पैसा का देन लेन कब से अपराध हो गया। मान लीजिए कोई ससुर अपने दामाद को फाइनेंशियली हेल्प करता है, दैट इज एन ऑफेंस अंडर डाउरी। कोई साला अपने जीजा को फाइनेंशियली हेल्प करता है, दैट इज एन ऑफेंस अंडर डाउरी। सो वॉलंटरी ट्रांजैक्शंस आर आल्सो ऑफेंस। ऐसे घोंचू नियम बनाए। और पति यदि अपनी ससुर की हेल्प करता है, पुरुष, तो वो अच्छा है, वो ठीक है। आप सोचिए परिवार टूटेंगे या नहीं टूटेंगे?
हाँ
टूटेंगे
ठीक
अब,
है।
वही बात
नाउ,
है।
हाँ तो नाउ द थिंग इज कि आपने जो ये बात कही, करेक्ट, थिंक अबाउट इट कि ये लॉज कैसे बने, एनजीओज कहाँ से आए, उनको पैसे कहाँ से मिले, where they got all this structure to do all these things, policy changes, high level policy changes, controlling how the laws are passed, how laws are interpreted, policies कैसे बनी। तो हमारा जो आज का डिस्कशन था वो इसी पे था कि because the other party has the social capital to actually congregate, aggregate their money, use their money to build institutions, to form policies। तो आपने जो समस्या बोली है, ठीक है, उसका एक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ये है कि अगर हमारे पास आज अगर सोशल कैपिटल होता तो हम भी वैसे इंस्टीट्यूशन खड़े करते, वैसे ही पैसे स्पेंड करते, एंड वी कुड हैव गॉट अ डिफरेंट डिसीजन। क्योंकि हमारे पास सोशल कैपिटल नहीं है, उसके वजह से ना तो हमारे पास इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, ना तो हमारे पास पॉलिसी थिंक टैंक्स हैं, ना तो हमारे पास वो स्ट्रेंथ इन नंबर्स है जहां पर हम पॉलिसीज को और गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गन्स को इन्फ्लुएंस कर सके। सो व्हाट यू आर सेइंग इज द प्रॉब्लम। आई एम सेइंग कि इस प्रॉब्लम का जो मूल आधार है वो है लैक ऑफ सोशल कैपिटल। अगर वो बिल्ड नहीं करेंगे तो आप प्रॉब्लम ही बोलते रहेंगे, समाधान कभी नहीं होगा।
आई अग्री विथ यू दादा, पर मैं बस बता रहा था कि हमारे नेचर ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स कहाँ तक है। बहुत
यस,
लोग
सी,
जो सोशल
नेचर ऑफ प्रॉब्लम तो है, बट द थिंग इज के what we need to do is go dig little bit deeper into the problem और find कि उसका सोर्स क्या है। अगर हम उस सोर्स को एड्रेस नहीं करेंगे ना, तो प्रॉब्लम तो भाई प्रॉब्लम को लेकर हम 500 किताब लिख देंगे पर उससे सोल्यूशन नहीं मिलेगा। व्हाट वी आर ट्राइंग टू डू इज ट्राई टू गेट टू पीपल, टू अंडरस्टैंड पीपल, कि लोगों को हम चाहते हैं कहना कि भाई ये तुम्हारे पास 500 प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, पर वो 500 प्रॉब्लम्स कहाँ से आए हैं, उसका प्राइमरी 1 2 3 4 प्राइमरी सोर्स होगा जहां से प्रॉब्लम एमिनेट कर रहा है। एंड दैट एमिनेशन इज लैक ऑफ कम्युनिटी एंड लैक ऑफ सोशल कैपिटल, जो इस सारे समस्याओं का मूल जड़ है। अगर आपके पास एक चार पांच इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, एनजीओज हैं, पॉलिसी थिंक टैंक्स हैं, तो जो लॉज बने हैं वो लॉज कल नहीं रहेंगे, because there will be enough pressure from multiple fronts to actually make changes to those laws। वो आप आज नहीं कर पा रहे हैं because you don't have the institution।
या यू आर राइट, आप ठीक कह रहे हैं, पर मुझे लगता है कि कुछ हिंदूज ने जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस क्रिएट किए हैं, उन आपकी बात नहीं कर रहे, पर मैं जो जनरली देखता हूँ वो बहुत सारे लेफ्टिस्ट प्रोपागेंडा को बाय कर लेते हैं, वो नेचर ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स नहीं समझ रहे। दैट इज व्हाट आई।
नहीं, सी दैट इज बाय डिजाइन। आपको क्यों लगता है कि आप जब एक एड देखते हो तो आपको वो सामान खरीदने का मन करता है? सी, ब्योमकेश बख्शी का एक बहुत ही फेमस डायलॉग है कि नथिंग हैपेंस ऑन इट्स ओन। कुछ सब चीजें ऐसे ही नहीं होती है। हमको लगता है कि भाई कोई बंदा आकर आपको बोल रहा है कि आप ये काम करो, तो आपको लगता है कि वो ऐसी सुबह उठ के आके बोल रहा है। जो भी चीज आपके साथ होती है या कुछ होता है, समाज में होता है, उसके पीछे एक डिजाइन होता है। ठीक है, आप अगर कोई ऐड देखते हो तो उस ऐड बनाने के पीछे साइकोलॉजी, डार्विनियन, कंज्यूमरिज्म और बहुत सारी चीजों को ध्यान में रख के वो ऐड बन, ताकि आप उस ऐड को देखो और वो सामान खरीदो। तो यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड के वट एवर यू सी इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू, देयर इज अ कंसर्टेड एफर्ट, एनर्जी पुट इनटू कि वो ऐसे ही क्यों आपके पास आया है। Until we are able to find out and analyze that thing, हम उसका समाधान नहीं निकाल पाएंगे। यस, एक्चुअली हमारा एक और पॉडकास्ट शुरू होने वाला है 15 मिनट में, तो आज हम इसको यहीं पर समाप्त करेंगे। अगले हफ्ते फिर आपसे मुलाकात होगी। ओके, तो धन्यवाद सबका। और एक और चीज मैं बोल दूं कि हमारा जो मेंबरशिप है वो ओपन है, तो जो भी हमारे दर्शक हैं जो want to talk to us directly and talk to ask questions to the panelists and to me, you can take the memberships and you will be able to ask questions and interact with our guests as well. Thank you everybody. Thank you Abhay for coming and
Thank you,
contributing
Dada.
to this. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.
जय श्री राम।